Congratulations on signing up for Sanderson Test Prep's SAT Express course. You've already taken the first important step in ensuring your test day success. In Session 1, we will take a look at an exam overview and cover the number of sections, number of questions, question types, timing, and scoring on the SAT exam. Here we see the order of the sections on the SAT. There are 10 total sections, and we'll take a look at the timing and type of sections that you will see on the various parts of the exam. Section 1 will always be the essay portion. It is 25 minutes long, and your essay score will count as part of the writing section of the SAT. We will discuss the scoring of the essay in more detail later on. Sections 2 through 7 are comprised of 2 critical reading, 2 math, 1 writing, and 1 experimental section. Each one is 25 minutes long. A few common questions that students ask are, what is the experimental section and why is it there? So let's take a moment to help answer those questions. The experimental section can be critical reading, math, or writing, and can appear in any of the sections from sections 2 through section 7. There is no way to tell which section is experimental, so you should do your best on all of the sections. The good news about the experimental section is that College Board uses the results from actual test takers on experimental sections to adjust question difficulty and ensure each question's validity in order to provide the most fair test possible. Another piece of good news regarding the experimental section is that it does not get scored. The reason this is beneficial is because many students report that the experimental section feels more difficult than the other sections of the exam. So if you're moving through the test feeling confident and you get to that one section that throws you off, just tell yourself that it is the experimental section and don't let it concern you because it won't impact your score. Sections 8 and 9 contain 1 critical reading and 1 math section, not necessarily in that order. These sections are slightly shorter, running only 20 minutes in length. And lastly, Section 10 will always be a short writing section that is 10 minutes long. On this slide, we have a breakdown of the question types and total question number of each discipline. In the critical reading, 48 out of the 67 questions are passage-based. This means the bulk of your reading score will be determined by your ability to read and analyze passages and answer the corresponding questions. In the math portions of the test, most of the questions are multiple choice, but there are 10 grid-in questions where you must come up with the value on your own without options to select from. Your writing sections will have relatively similar total numbers of improving sentences and identifying sentence error questions, which test your grammar skills. But you will also have 6 improving paragraph questions that incorporate your critical reading abilities into your grammar knowledge. As mentioned, the essay will be included in the writing section score. In the critical reading, the first 2 sections you encounter will contain 24 questions each, but they'll be broken down slightly differently. One of the sections, listed first here, will have 8 sentence completions, 4 short passage questions, and only 12 long passage questions. The timing for the entire section gives you approximately 1 minute per question. However, keep in mind that for the long passages, you must take time to read and analyze the passage first. This will leave you with less than a minute to answer each of those long passage questions. The other critical reading section, listed as number 2 here, will contain only 5 sentence completions, the same number of short passage questions, and 15 long passage questions, which will be split across 2 passages. The last critical reading section is only 19 questions long, but the shortened timing of 20 minutes leaves approximately the same amount of time per question. There are 6 sentence completions, no short passages, and 1 long passage that has 13 questions associated with it in this section. In the math, the long multiple choice section and short multiple choice section, listed as 1 and 3 here, have very similar setups and the same timing of 1 minute and 15 seconds per question. The math section with 18 questions is unique because it is comprised of 8 multiple choice questions followed by 10 grid-ins. Something important to keep in mind is the fact that your 8 multiple choice questions will go from easy to hard, but then the difficulty level resets back to easy questions when you begin the grid-ins. Strategy-wise, it is important not to spend too much time on the difficult multiple choice questions when there are easier grid-ins to follow that are worth the same number of points. When gridding in responses, 3 important rules to follow are that you may not grid in negative numbers, you may not grid in mixed numbers like 2 1/4 or 7 1/2, and you may not round decimals. Gridding in your answers correctly can ensure the maximum number of points on the gridding questions. In the long writing multiple choice section, you have 3 question types. The improving sentences questions are those in which a portion of the sentence is underlined, and that version, along with alternative versions, are presented in the answer choices. The timing for these questions is a minute per question. The identifying error questions have 4 potential errors in the sentence that are underlined, and an additional option of no error to be selected if the sentence is correct as written. The timing for answering these is approximately 30 seconds per question. Lastly, in this long writing section, you will have 6 improving paragraph questions that ask about grammar in the context of a short passage. The short writing section, which you will always have as the last section, section 10 of the exam, is comprised of 14 improving sentences questions. The timing here is slightly faster paced, with only 43 seconds per question. In addition to the multiple choice components of the writing section, your essay from section 1 of the exam will be scored by 2 graders on a scale of 0 to 6 for a combined essay score of somewhere between 0 and 12. In total, the essay will account for up to 180 points of your writing section scaled score, which brings us to the scoring portion of this lesson. Based on the number of questions that you get right and wrong, you will have a certain raw score that gets converted to a scaled score, which has a maximum value of 800 per section. The same raw score does not always correlate to the same scaled score. College Board adjusts accordingly based on the difficulty of the exam itself to make sure that a particular scaled score on a particular SAT exam reflects the same competency level as that score from any other SAT. For example, a 530 in the math on the January SAT and a 530 on the math portion of the March SAT reflect students of the same ability level. If you'd like to take a moment to pause and finish reading through the explanation, you can. Otherwise, we will be moving on to discuss the wrong answer penalty. On the multiple choice questions of the SAT, there is a 1/4 point penalty for an incorrect answer. Statistically, it does not hurt your score to guess, but it does not help your score either. In the first example shown, if you are guessing out of 5 answer choices, you will get 1 out of every 5 correct. That means 1 right and 4 wrong, and as shown here, that indicates you would break even if guessing. The only reason to skip a question altogether is in the interest of time. Rather than guessing on difficult questions, it can be advantageous to your score to spend more time on easier questions to make sure they are answered correctly. It becomes beneficial to your score to guess on questions if you can eliminate even one of the answer choices. Finally, when preparing for your SAT, it is very important to have a specific target score in mind as a motivational tool to help guide your preparation. The best advice we can give is to think of a couple schools you're interested in and search online to find out their average SAT scores. This will give you something to shoot for as you move forward with your SAT prep. Here, if we take a look at the percentile ranks, you can get an idea of what particular scaled scores match up to in terms of the percentage of student test takers who score at or below that level. As session 1 comes to a close, let's recap a few of the important points that we've covered thus far. Know the timing for each section. The better you know each section's timing and the more comfortable you are having practiced that timing, the better you'll be able to pace yourself appropriately. The total number of questions in each section, 67 reading, 54 math, and 49 writing, are important to keep in mind so that you can figure out what percentage of those questions you need to get correct in order to obtain your desired scaled score. Be aware that it is the math section with 18 questions that contains the grid-ins. This is important to know because the question difficulty level will accelerate much faster in that section as compared to the others. The 1/4 point wrong answer penalty makes it so that you break even with a raw score of 0 if randomly guessing throughout the test. Therefore, you should guess if you can eliminate any of the answer choices. A standard recommendation is 10 weeks of preparation to get ready to take an SAT, but you should adjust that number according to your specific situation. Have you taken an SAT before? Have you done a prep course on your own or through school? How were your scores on the PSAT? These are all important questions to consider when deciding whether or not you may need more than those 10 weeks. Full-length practice tests are essential to seeing score improvement. You should take at least 4 full-length practice exams. Each one will take approximately 4 hours, so plan ahead to see what time you have available on weekends or even holiday breaks to take the 4-hour practice exams in one sitting. Endurance is just as important as content knowledge when it comes to such a lengthy exam. Don't let testing fatigue be a limitation to your ability to achieve your target score. During preparation for your SAT, make sure that regular practice is incorporated into your everyday academic study habits. Schoolwork is often more pressing because assignments are often due within a few days or even the very next day, and as a result, it is easy to put SAT prep on the back burner. Even 15 or 30 minutes a day of regular practice can lead to significant score improvement. With your study plan in place and a strong understanding of the layout of the test, you are now ready to move on to Session 2 to take a more in-depth look at the critical reading section of the exam. We recommend that you periodically come back and visit Session 1 if you have any questions about the structure of the SAT, its timing, or how it is scored.